We are now in week 2 of the Phoenix Festival tournament. As always, use the top link in the description below to go and vote for who you think would win in each of the matches and give your reasoning as to why. And there'll be a chance that your answers may be featured in the results video that will be posted later this week. The voting for this round will be live until about 6 p.m. on June 18th, so almost a full 5 days to think through your answers and go to the voting. Getting into our first match of the day, we have Blake Belladonna versus Elm Edurn in the Desert and Savannah biomes. A kinda sorta repeat from Volume 7 when we had Elm and Vine against Blake and Yang, though the fight wouldn't go exactly the same. Blake wouldn't have to worry about Vine attacking her as well, and Yang wouldn't be fighting on her side. But we did see what would happen if Elm got a hold of Blake in that situation. Blake would definitely be taking a little bit of damage at that point, but with her being able to focus on a single opponent, use her shadow clones to dodge out of the way, and adding elemental effects to it, she would definitely be able to put up a pretty good fight against Elm. So, with Blake being the faster moving opponent and Elm, with her semblance and pretty much her fighting style being more rooted in place, it would be more focused on Elm trying to hit Blake while Blake is kind of dodging around, I would think. The biomes don't really offer any advantages to either of them, pretty much open space, unless Blake tries to hide in the grass of the Savannah biome and try to make it more of a long-ranged fight, though if Elm can locate where she is, she does have a rocket launcher and would be able to deal some pretty heavy damage that way. I could see this fight going either way, and honestly, I'll leave it up to you guys to decide through the voting who ends up winning this fight. In match 2, we have James Ironwood versus Yatsuhashi Daichi in the Urban and Savannah biomes. A match that definitely would play more to Ironwood's strengths than it does to Yatsuhashi, because Ironwood could keep this more of a long-range battle and force Yatsu to be on the defensive for the majority of it. Especially with the Urban and Savannah biomes offering him a little bit of cover, the grass in the Savannah biome, the buildings in the Urban biome, he could just stay behind those and start taking shots at Yatsuhashi with his due process. Especially with the addition of the kind of cannon function from Volume 8, that could deal a lot of damage if it connects. Now, Yatsuhashi would likely be able to use his broadsword to block a majority of the bullets from due process, though a gravity round might send him flying backwards and Ironwood would be darting around the battlefield, firing from multiple different angles. I think that Yatsuhashi could keep up with it, but I don't think he could tank too many blows, if even one blow, from that cannon. What I see happening with this fight is actually Yatsuhashi using the Urban biome to his own advantage, keeping out of the line of sight of Ironwood to avoid that cannon and eventually get the jump on Ironwood. Because if Yatsuhashi landed a decent hit against Ironwood, that would be very close to game over. I don't think he could take very many hits from Yatsuhashi. Though with Ironwood's experience and his metal body, he could definitely tank at least 1 or 2 hits from Yatsuhashi before going down. But it would be a very back and forth fight nonetheless. So I'm curious to see what you guys think down below and through the voting. And then in our third match, we have Winter Schnee versus Vine Zeki in the Mountain and Ocean biomes. An ocean biome with someone who uses ice dust would be an interesting matchup, but we don't really know what dust Winter has at her disposal, as we haven't really seen her use much other than the lightning dust in her time dilation. And fighting against Vine, who hasn't really been shown to use his weapon that much, more relying on his semblance, I think that Winter, in combination with her glyphs and the dust that she has available, would be able to avoid a number of his attacks, or his attempts to ensnare her and slam her into the ground, which is the tactic that we've seen Vine use most throughout the RWBY series. So I think that Winter with her speed would be able to dodge out of the way of a lot of Vine's attacks, be able to get in close, land a few hits against him, though Vine, with his maneuverability, would be able to maneuver around Winter fairly well, especially in the mountain biome with things that he could cling onto and swing off of, so it again would be a very back and forth, though I think I would give the edge to Winter in this fight. And then in our fourth match, we have Clover Ebby versus Emerald Sustrai in the Anti-Gravity and Mountain biomes. A fight that would be difficult for Emerald to get an advantage in. With her hallucinations, she could make Clover hallucinate whatever she pleases, but Clover, with his good fortune, might be able to just pick out Emerald from wherever she might be, even hiding behind those illusions. Be able to make a lucky shot with his fishing rod, be able to ensnare her anyways, and be able to deal some damage against her. Now, he isn't really the heavy damage-dealing type, so I don't think he'd be able to finish her in one go, and it might come to a straight-up brawl, Emerald trying to keep it long distance with her Thieves' Respite, and attacking with her sickles, being able to deal enough damage against him, but I think Clover is slightly more skilled here, and it would be difficult for Emerald to win. She would have to use the biomes to her advantage. Fighting in the anti-gravity biome, I think, would be something that she would be very good at, being able to dodge around the different platforms and possibly be able to use that to her advantage, but again, Clover with his good luck, things might happen in a lucky way that would slip Emerald up, he would be able to land more hits against her. I think that Clover would probably end up winning this fight, though it wouldn't be very easy for him to do so, especially if he gets distracted by any of the hallucinations, and, you know, I'm curious to know what you guys think on how this fight would turn out. And then we get to the fifth match, one that I hadn't thought of before, and a matchup that I find extremely interesting, and I would love to know your thoughts on it down in the comments below. We have Coco Adele versus Neapolitan in the Mountain and Ice biomes. This one, I think, is heavily in Coco's favor, because she is the type of fighter that Neo is least accustomed and equipped to deal with. In every fight that we've seen Neo in, she always ends up close combat, and dealing with ranged weapons, she always ends up blocking with her umbrella. Coco's weapon is not something you can block at a distance. Her Gatling gun, and combined with her semblance of hype we saw in Volume 2, rip through Deathstalkers and Nevermore. This would not be something that Neo can simply block with her Hush. If Neo tries to throw up any of her overactive imagination, any of her illusions, Coco would rip through them with her Gatling gun, spraying them around. So the only chance that Neo would have, really, is trying to use the biomes, either the Ice biome or the Mountain biome, trying to get enough time to escape, dodge out of the way of Coco's bullets, and wait until Coco ran out of ammunition. But the more that Neo tried to use her semblance to avoid Coco's attacks, the more it would be eating away at her aura. And I would argue Neo's aura would be falling faster than Coco's while using their respective semblances. So this match would come down to how long Neo would be able to avoid Coco's attacks while keeping her aura intact, and whether Coco would be able to land a lucky couple of hits against her, with her Gatling gun being able to spray around, and Neo not being as fast as Mercury to be able to outrun the spray. I think that Coco would have a pretty good advantage in this fight, which I find very interesting with these kind of matchups that come up with the tournament. And in this match in particular, even if it did get to close range, it's not like Coco would be helpless in that situation. She's still skilled at close combat, though Neo would definitely have the advantage at that point. Depending on how much aura she had, it could still turn out either way, so yeah, I think that Coco would have the advantage in this fight, but let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments below. And then in match 6, we have Cinder Fall versus Sun Wukong in the Forest and Mountain biomes. In this one, it would be a battle of two dual wielders, Sun with his gunchucks and his aura clones, as well as Cinder with her Midnight, the dual blades that can combine into arrows. And with this, especially in the Forest biome, where Cinder would happily use that as cover, fire off arrows at Sun, I think that Cinder has the advantage. Sun's semblance would drain his aura just a little bit too quickly for him to use it to try to scout out the forest, and then Cinder would just fire from a range, using her Scorching Caress to cause explosions near Sun, and probably be able to win that from a distance or close range. Now, if Sun did get close range to Cinder, was able to use his gunchucks, that would be a lot for Cinder to keep up with, but she is extremely skilled. She has started relying very much on her maiden powers, but I think she would be skilled enough to take on Sun, even with his added training in Vacuo. So this one, I think, would be favored for Cinder, but it would be a difficult fight for her to win if Sun is able to get close. Long distance, though, Cinder would definitely have that in the bag. In match 7, we have May Marigold versus Pyrrha Nikos in the Ocean and Lava biomes. Now, Pyrrha was extremely skilled back in Volume 1, when she was in her first year at the Academy. And May, although we haven't really seen her that much in combat, is a graduate of Atlas Academy, supposedly at the top of her class, and has years of experience in the Happy Huntresses afterwards. So, on skill level, they're at least equal as far as I'm concerned. But when it comes down to the biomes, they kind of give Pyrrha the advantage, more so because they give a disadvantage for May. Her semblance of invisibility field would be difficult for Pyrrha to find where she's located, though Pyrrha could always pulse her polarity and, you know, latch on to May's weapon, send that flying out of her hand, be able to locate her, and then get to her location, fire off a couple of shots from her weapon, and be able to find her that way. But if May tries to use her invisibility field with the Ocean and Lava biome, I would argue there'd be enough steam being created from the heat in the Lava biome and it working with the Ocean biome, creating steam, that the invisibility fields, I don't know how well it would work. I know that we've seen in Volume 7 that it does project what is behind the invisibility field in front of it, so it does look like, well, there's just nothing there. However, when it comes to steam or something similar, I think that there might be a little bit of a bubble created that might be visible if someone is looking for it, so that might be a disadvantage to Mei, but that's just my own speculation. There's no actual proof on that that we've seen in the series, but still, it would be an interesting fight. I think that Pyrrha has more of the advantage when it comes to close combat, especially versus Mei's weapon, because she has the shield as well as her sword, being able to block it and then counterattack. Mei would be able to attack from long range from her invisibility field, try to use the biomes to her advantage in that way, but I think that Pyrrha might have the edge in this fight, though not really by that much. Mei doesn't really have that much metal other than her weapon on her body, so Pyrrha, even pulsing her aura, she would be able to find Mei, but if Mei's able to use her invisibility field again, Pyrrha would just burn through her aura trying to manipulate the magnetism in that way. So it could go either way. I think Pyrrha has the slight edge, but Mei could definitely take this as well if she's able to use the biomes to her advantage as well as her invisibility. Moving on to our 8th match though, we have Mercury Black versus Velvet Scarlatina in the anti-gravity and forest biomes. Velvet and Mercury are both very agile characters. Mercury, I would argue, is a little bit faster on his feet than Velvet, but Velvet would be able to adapt to any situation and would be able to maneuver around the anti-gravity biome and the forest biome fairly well. This would be an incredible fight to see, honestly, especially with Mercury being able to maneuver around the different battlefields, use his Teleria to launch himself forward, as well as attack from range, and Velvet being able to use any number of weapons to maneuver around the forest biome and jump around the anti-gravity biome, though I think when it comes to actual damage dealing, Mercury would have the advantage. Because although Velvet is able to copy a number of different weapons, they are made from hard light, so any dust rounds aren't as powerful, so attacking from range isn't really Velvet's strong suit, but when it comes to attacking close range, Velvet would be more on a level playing field. However, when switching between weapons, or if her weapon runs out, that the hard light dust fades for one of the weapons, Mercury would likely be able to take advantage of that brief moment in time and counterattack against Velvet. But she would be able to use the biomes as cover, especially the forest biome, so it would be very back and forth. I don't think it would be an easy fight for either of them to win, and honestly, I think it could go either way. Slight edge to Mercury overall because of the gaps in Velvet's switching between weapons, but this would be a very cool fight to see. And then in our 9th match, we have another battle of the Ace Ops. We have Harriet Bree versus Marrow Aemon in the mountain and lava biomes. Harriet's speed is definitely a lot to keep up with, but with Marrow's ability to stop an opponent's momentum, he could literally stop Harriet in her tracks and try to prevent her from getting close. Though his aura would be draining quite a bit while that is happening, he would be able to throw out his fetch or launch a couple shots off from his rifle and be able to deal some damage that way. Even though we haven't seen him do that in the series, it is plausible for him to do, since in Volume 8 he did stop the momentum of Harriet, Elm, and Vine and then be able to walk forward. He still has to keep his finger pointing at them, so I think the only way he'd really be able to attack is by throwing out the boomerang, stopping someone's momentum, and then hoping that they're in a position where the boomerang would hit. It would be a difficult fight for Marrow to win. His aura would be dropping quite fast, and Harriet, with her speed, would be a lot to keep up with. I really don't think Marrow's that geared towards 1v1, but he would still be able to put up a decent fight at the very least. And then in our 10th match, we have Weiss Schnee versus Rhodes in the ocean and forest biomes. A fight that would be difficult for Rhodes to keep up with, I think. He's a much more experienced huntsman and would be able to deal with a number of Weiss's summons fairly easily, though the Queen Lancer and the Armagigas would definitely give him trouble, as well as really anyone else, but the forest biome offers a lot of cover for him to get away from them, but also offers cover for Weiss to be able to get away from him and use her summons, as well as the dust at her disposal being the most tricky portion of it, as she would be able to use a number of different dust attacks, as well as create smoke screens from the ocean biome, just using fire dust, as well as potentially electrifying it or freezing it solid. It would be a difficult fight for Rhodes to win. He definitely has more experience than Weiss, being a huntsman for many, many years, but Weiss, I think, has the versatility to be able to keep up with him in this fight, get into the forest biome, use her summons, possibly lure him into the ocean biome, and then be able to use her dust to her advantage, and I think Weiss just has the biome advantage overall in this one and would be able to beat Rhodes. But let me know what you guys think, and if you have a different perspective on how this fight would play out. And then in our 11th match, we have Yang Xiaolong versus Fiona Time in the urban and ice biomes. A fight that I think Yang has the advantage in. She seems to be the quicker fighter than Fiona, and Fiona we haven't really seen fight on screen. Using her semblance, Palm Pocket, Fiona might be able to store some rubble from the urban biome, or ice, or even ice dust from the ice biome and use to her advantage. Not to mention if she brought anything else with her from outside of battle, but I don't really think she would be that oriented to fighting Yang. She would be a very quick fighter, be able to launch herself around the battlefield using her Umbricelica, get in close, and land a number of blows against Fiona. Not to mention also using the time delay detonation rounds that she has in Volume 7 and 8, those upgrades. She would be able to launch around Fiona, drop a number of those off, and I think be able to overwhelm Fiona overall in this fight. As much as I would love to see Fiona move on in the tournament, I think that Yang would end up winning this fight and knocking Fiona out of it. But speaking of characters that I don't want to see knocked out of the tournament, in our 12th match we have RWBY Rose versus Lai Ren in the Desert and Geyser biomes. Ren is very much accustomed to maneuvering around the battlefield, especially now that he has the grappling hook function of his Stormflower, but RWBY has her semblance of Petal Burst, able to move faster than Ren, and with her Scythe, probably being able to hit harder than him. Not to mention she could also snipe from a distance, and in the desert biome, there would be a pretty clear shot if she is able to get a distance away from him. Now, it would be a difficult fight, I think, for either of them. Both are very familiar with each other's fighting styles, and I think Ren would be able to block at least a couple of RWBY's attacks, so it would be difficult for her to land that decisive blow against him. But with her being able to use her Petal Burst to get behind Ren and attack with the Scythe, I think that RWBY would have the advantage, but Ren has a lot of skill as well, and not to mention that he is accustomed to hooking people's weapons with his Stormflower and being able to attack that way. It could go either way, but I think that RWBY would have the advantage in this fight. Again, let me know what you guys think through the voting. And then in our 13th match, we have Fox Alistair versus Adam Tauros in the Anti-Gravity and Geyser biomes. This one, I think, is in Adam's favor. With the anti-gravity biome, I don't know how much Fox's assistant device would be able to tell him about the biome actually starting to change, about the gravity shifting, and that would come more as a surprise to him when it happened than it would for Adam. Adam would be able to take advantage of that, especially if Fox started fighting from a long range. He would be able to charge up his semblance of Moonslice fairly easily, and would be able to start dealing pretty heavy blows against Fox. Now, Fox could use his telepathy to mess with Adam's mind, just screaming into it, disorienting him, and things like that, but overall, I think that Adam would be able to take advantage of that. Especially with the geyser biome, I don't know how well Fox's assistant device would be able to tell him when a geyser's about to explode or anything like that, so the amount of information that Fox would have to keep up with in either of these biomes, the anti-gravity especially, I would argue, as well as Adam being able to charge up his semblance, I think that Adam would take this fight. And then in our 14th match, we have Talk versus Roman Torchwick in the Desert and Lava biome. In this fight, my gut reaction is to say that Talk would be able to overwhelm Roman fairly quickly, but we've seen how well Roman can keep up with opponents. Back in Volume 1, even against Sun, who was dual-wielding his gunchucks, firing off a number of rounds, Roman was not only able to parry and block it, but also counterattack. Now, Talk is much more skilled than Sun was back in Volume 1, so Roman would have much more difficulty keeping up with it, but I think that Roman would still be able to counterattack through Talk's barrage. She's very much a straightforward, aggressive fighter, but Roman would be able to use the biome to his advantage. He's definitely not above going into the lava biome, taking a bunch of fire dust crystals, throwing them at Talk, shooting them with his cane, and causing explosions that way, fighting with whatever is available. And with that being the case, it would be tricky for Talk to keep up with and end the fight very quickly. If Roman would be able to get Talk to the point where she would activate her semblance so that she could just straightforward attack, not have to worry about defense, then he might be able to get himself into an advantageous situation where he could just wait out the 60 seconds, Talk's aura would break, and he would end up winning the fight. I think that Talk still has the advantage in this fight, but Roman would definitely be able to put up a very decent fight and possibly win. So I'll leave it up to you guys to decide through the voting. And then in our 15th match, we have Robin Hill versus Ilya Emitola in the Ocean and Forest biomes. This one, Robin has the range advantage with her weapon also being a crossbow, and Ilia has the dust advantage. With it being the ocean biome, if Robin stepped foot in the water, well, Ilia might be able to electrify it and take her out that way. But in the forest biome, that gives Robin a lot of cover to fire from range, and with the exploding arrows would be able to deal a fair amount of damage against Ilia. But the forest would also have shade to be able to allow Ilia to use her camouflage and get the jump on Robin that way. So this one is a fairly even fight. Robin probably has more experience being a graduated huntress and having the experience of being the leader of the Happy Huntresses, but Ilia has the experience with the White Fang, and the forest biome would give advantage to both of them. Ocean biome a little bit more to Ilia, so this would be a very back and forth fight and would be one of whoever could land the decisive blow. So I'm curious to know what you guys think. And then in our final match of week 2, we have a fight between Team Juniper. If Jean had won his fight in round 1, we would have seen Pyrrha versus Jean, but now we are seeing Nora Valkyrie versus Jean Arc in the mountain and anti-gravity biomes. Now, as I said with the previous match, Jean has come a very long way from Volume 1. He definitely has the capability to hold his own against Nora. I would argue that with his shield, he would be able to tank a couple hits from Nora. And Nora has the upgrades to her weapon, allowing it to act as almost a witch's broom, be able to dart around the battlefield fairly quickly, and also the added functions of the electricity dust being able to charge up her semblance, giving her a little bit of added firepower against Jean. But the thing is, they are fighting in the mountain biome. This is the one that Nora fought in back in Volume 3, the one that charged up her semblance to the point where she was able to launch an entire team of students out of the arena. Now, there are no ring outs, but if Nora, using the Witch's Broom function of her Magnhild, was able to get up to the top of that mountain, she could easily just slam down near wherever Jean is, and the shockwave would probably deal enough damage to disorient him at the very least. Although he could use the hard light dust equipment that he got from Pietro's office in Volume 8 to probably offset a fair amount of the shockwave, Nora's strength wouldn't run out after a single hit, and I think she would be able to overwhelm Jean in this fight. As much as I don't want to see Jean eliminated from the tournament, I think that having rolled the mountain biome, that Nora would end up winning here, and Jean would just be at a disadvantage. Now, he could try to use the anti-gravity biome to avoid Nora, wait for her aura to run out, but the Witch's Broom function, or the ability of her to ride on her Magnhild and kind of dart around the battlefield, just makes her able to get to wherever Jean is and land those hits against him. So I think that Nora would end up winning this fight as well. But these are my thoughts on the matches of Week 2. Let me know your thoughts both through the voting and in the comments down below. Let me know what match you found most interesting of today. For me, it was definitely Coco versus Neo. That one is a match I hadn't thought of before, and the outcome that I can see happening kind of surprises me. So let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the tournament thus far, and if you are, want to see more of the Phoenix Festival Tournament, more RWBY theories, more RWBY videos that are to come, make sure to subscribe and join the Guild of the Eternal Flame. Tweet me at PhoenixKnight7, and I'll see you guys in the next video.